What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we'll be going over lists. Now, what are lists in Python? Well, lists, first of all, are very useful. I use lists all the time. Lists are a collection of data. They can be one data type, they can be multiple data types, but there are ways for you to store collections of data inside of a variable. Okay, so without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so to declare a list, we can declare a list in multiple ways. First, I'm going to do my list. We can create an empty list. We define a list by, equals. By these brackets, this is a list. A list is an inbuilt data structure, so there are 4 inbuilt data structures in Python. There's a list, dictionaries, tuples, and sets. Today we'll just be going over the list. This is how you define a list, with brackets like this. Okay. We can also, so this is an empty list. We can also define an empty list like this. And we can put elements in list. So what I mean by that is we can put any data type that we talked about. So we can put ints, we can put strings, we can put floats, booleans, we can put all those inside of lists. We can even put lists inside of list. So that's something we'll talk about later, but this is a perfectly fine list here. Let's see, it's just a collection of data types. It's a way for us to store multiple instances of data. Okay. 3 things to remember about lists. They are ordered, which means that each element in a list is assigned to an index, like a string, which we talked about a few videos ago. Each element in a list has an index. So this is index 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. Lists are changeable, so you can change a list. So you can add items to a list, you can remove items to a list, so you can change list. And you can also have duplicate items in list. For example, I can have 2 2s in this list. Some data types you cannot have that. So lists, remember, they're changeable, they're ordered, and they can have duplicates. Okay, so when we talk about indexes in lists, there is very similar to strings. Okay, so I can print out my underscore list. You will just see it will print out the list like this. You can print out the first item in the list. Remember, index 0 is always the first item. So that's 2. You can print the last item in the list. Remember, the last item is -1. So that's how you get the index of an item in the list. We can also slice list. So similar to how we slice strings, we have a start, colon, stop. And remember, the stop is non-inclusive. So if we wanted, this list has 5 items, which means the last index is the 4th index, index 4. So if we wanted to get the 4th index, we would slice to 5. So we're starting at the 2nd index, 0, 1, 2. We're starting at 2. We're ending at true. So as you can see, we can get the 2nd index, 3rd index, and 4th index of a list. So we can slice list. Again, we can also slice them backwards. So if I wanted, let's do -4 and -1, -1, -2, -3, that's 3 all the way until true. That's 3 all the way into high. My fault. The last item, remember, is not inclusive, so it does not include the last item. Okay, so that's how you slice list. Like I said, lists are also changeable, so we can change the item in the list. So we can do, let's do my underscore list, we access the index. So let's do the second index, which is the second 2, and we can change this to B. Okay, and we can print my list. So now instead of this, actually let me print the first instance of this list before and after we change it. So before we change it, whoops, that's not what I wanted. Before we change it, okay, now it's doing all sorts of weird stuff. But before we change the list, you see it has the 2, and then we assign the value B to the second index, and now it replaces the 2 in the second index. So you can change list. Okay, you can alter list. Okay, you can also add items to list. So what I mean by that is we can add, or what we call append in Python. So we can do my_list.append, and let's just append the value 7.5 to get a floating point number in here, and then we can print my list. So as you can see, 7.5 is not originally in the list when we initialize it, but once we append it, then 7.5 is there. So you can also append items. You can also remove items. So we can't remove, technically we can't just directly remove an item with an index, but we can remove an item using the remove method based on the value, not the index. Okay, so we can print, so actually let's do, so we append the 7.5, we print it. Now let's remove the 7.5. Okay, so let's print my list again. And so now it's going to print it with 7.5 and without 7.5. Okay, so we can add and we can remove items based on the value. We can also, we talked about loops in our previous video. We can loop through list. So a basic example here for I in range length. Remember we talked about the length method. My list. No, I forgot the N. Let's just print. So remember, okay, so let's actually break this down a little bit. So for I in range length my list, this list has 5 items. So for I in range 5, so I is 0 through 4, as we talked about in our loops video. So we're gonna print my_list I. So what that's doing, if we break this down, I is first 0. We're printing the 0th index of my list, which is the first item, and then we're printing the first index, second index, third index, fourth index, because remember the range is 5, so we're going from 0 to 4. It's 5 elements. Okay, so this is literally going to print every item in the list line by line. So just remember that we can loop through list. The last thing we'll talk about in this list video, I know it's getting kind of long, so there are more methods you can extend. You can use the extend method, you can copy, you can append list, but the last thing we'll talk about is sorting list. I find this method to be useful. So let's just say we have a list, my list. Let's say it's Z, I don't know, G, A, E, and let's go, I already did, let's do W. So what we can do is we can use the list.sort method. So we can do my_list.sort, and then we can print my_list. And as you can see, it sorts it based on alphabetical order, so from A to Z. We can also do this numerically. So let's say 25, 35, 35, 1, and 8. Same thing. It was sorted from least to highest. You want to be careful with this. So, for example, if we have a string in here, we put high. Python doesn't know how to compare a string and numbers when it comes to, sorting from least to greatest, right? So when you're sorting, make sure that you stick to a data type. I mean, you can do floats and ints, but when it comes to text and numbers, you don't want to mix those when you want to sort. Unless you do something fancy, you can basically declare like your own method of sorting, but that is well beyond this video. So you can just know that you can sort your list with the correct data types. Okay, so be mindful of your data types. That would do it for this video. In the next video, we'll be talking about dictionaries, which I also really enjoy. If you learned something new in this video, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.